I will show you the magical material. This is really great material. Hi guys. There are alternative materials to metal. This video is a continuation of the previous one testing carbon fiber epoxy granite. I will make at home a composite material of light and strong carbon fiber used for high-end parts and epoxy granite, which is used as a substitute for cast bases for machine tools. If you use these materials well, you can make large parts at home that are harder than steel. It could be a great impact on your project. This lovely cube is the carbon fiber epoxy granite I made as a test in the last video. I tested it again to improve the problems I found in the previous test. And the finished one is this dice. The surface is made of carbon fiber and the inside is epoxy granite. Each surface has a nut embedded in it. I learned a lot from this dice. I am going to use this carbon fiber epoxy granite because I want to learn how to make strong and beautiful carbon fiber epoxy granite more easily. And we want to complete this unique 5-axis CNC machine. This video is part 5 of the 5-axis CNC machine project in a small room. This test has convinced me that it is possible to build the machine frame with carbon fiber epoxy granite without failure. I am looking forward to seeing the machine finished. I always discover new things when I do this kind of testing. And new ideas come to mind. If you are interested, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any future videos. I purchased 1.5mm carbon plates for this project. I did some research on carbon fiber. Carbon is very hard and does not seem to be machined well with metal machining tools. I purchased a special saw for machining carbon this time. Here it is. This saw is more like a file than a saw. The blade has small grains on it, which are used to cut the material. The thickness of this special saw is quite a bit thicker than a regular saw. Now let's look at the carbon material. The factory-produced plate has a perfect pattern. It is very beautiful. And the amount of epoxy should be minimal. It is a very good quality carbon plate. Tap it and listen to the sound. The sound will give you an idea of the hardness of the material. It has a high-pitched sound like a metal plate. I also just found an acrylic plate, so I will compare it with the acrylic plate. The lightness is almost the same as the acrylic plate. What do you think? Did you understand the hardness of the carbon plate a little? I will tell you my impression after touching the carbon plate for the first time. The weight feels like acrylic. It also felt like metal or ceramic. It is very beautiful but less shiny than I expected. I think it feels that way because the carbon I often see has a glossy surface. But I think this kind of texture is cooler for a mechanical frame. It is similar to good quality epoxy granite used for surface plates. Last time I made a simple block of 4 cm square, and this time I will make a 4 cm square dice as a test. As you can see, the whole thing looks cooler. We have made many improvements compared to the last time. This is what I am going to make now. Since this is my first time working on this project, I will continue to work on it through trial and error. I think you will probably be interested in them. First of all, I would like to cut a carbon fiber plate into 4 cm square after I make a scrape with vernier caliper. The scribe line is almost invisible. I drew a scribe line with a scriber and found that the line was well drawn. Then, I would like to try cutting it with a regular hacksaw blade. I will see how it looks like. But first, a word of caution. The last time I made a cube using carbon fiber, I had a big problem. That's because I didn't really understand that carbon fiber is a material that is harmful to the human body. This time, I would like to work with it with proper measures. I will check on the internet. Carbon fiber machining, safety measures.
Do not expose your skin. Wear a mask. Work in a well-ventilated area.
Cover the whole body and wear a mask. In other words, this is what it means? In short, dress like this. Do I have to go this much? It is too strange. Could it possibly be like this? This is likely to be reported to the police. Is there a better way?
Wet processing is an effective way to prevent dust dispersal.
Wet processing prevents dust dispersal. There seems to be a method of processing by wet working. This method is to wet the surface with water or oil to prevent dust from scattering. It is very easy and would be suitable for work done on a small scale like mine. I would like to work with this method. It cuts better with a regular hacksaw than I thought it would. It was much easier than cutting a 1.5mm steel plate. Next, I will use a carbon-specific hacksaw blade. The cutting surface is much thicker than a regular hacksaw blade. The cutting time did not seem to change much. According to the information on the internet, a regular hacksaw blade can also cut, but the hacksaw blade does not seem to last as long. Perhaps it might not be a bad idea to cut with a regular hacksaw blade, considering that hacksaw blades are easily spoiled. In fact, this hacksaw for carbon fiber was very expensive. My impression after cutting carbon fiber for the first time is that it is easier processing than I thought it would be. The internet says machining is hard, but it wasn't that hard. I liked it very much. It feels like an ordinary plastic when you touch it, but there is something strange about the fact that it has higher strength than steel. Let's drill a hole in a carbon fiber plate. Since it seems that a normal metal drill will not make a hole, so a diamond bit is used. The hole is drilled in the right place. Not bad. The hole is drilled in the right place. Not bad. Let's change to a bit with a diameter of 3 mm and widen the hole. This time, I will use plain water to prevent dust dispersion. Now that I know what the machining of the carbon plate feels like, I cut out the face parts for all of the dice. It was difficult to see the lines drawn on the carbon board, so I used a white marker. The white marker is clearly visible when drawn over the black carbon plate. It is very nice. After drilling many holes in carbon fiber plate, I found that it is easy to drill holes with a diamond bit. Machining with water will not generate dust, and there are no sharp cutting chips like when drilling steel. Machining is also very quiet. Not having to worry about noise is a big advantage for me. Now that the carbon fiber plate has been cut, fine-tune the dimensions with a file. First, try it with an ordinary steel file. With a file for steel, it doesn't feel like it is filed down at all. Last time, the carbon I created was fine, but this time it was not. It seems that a good quality carbon nibber produced in a factory is not suitable for a metal tool. Remove excess carbon fiber. When making actual machine tool frames, I need to make lots of screw holes. With ordinary metal, I can drill holes and tap to make screws, but epoxy granite is mostly stone and cannot be machined with taps. I need to use a method such as grooving the metal. In this case, I will embed a regular nut and a rivet nut. The epoxy granite will now be poured. Generally, the percentage of epoxy is said to be less than 10%. However, I do not care much about the percentage of epoxy. This is what I have learned from my experience. What I focus on is the fluidity of the epoxy. If it has sufficient fluidity, it is easy to air it out. If I start out by focusing only on the percentage of epoxy, I may end up making inferior epoxy granite with blowholes all over it. I have made epoxy granite many times before. From that experience, I have realized that it is advantageous to use as large a gravel as possible to reduce the epoxy ratio. However, if I put large gravel in the epoxy granite at the beginning, I would end up with epoxy granite full of blowholes. So I will put the large gravel in later, in the right size, in the right place, and in the right amount needed. Attach the last face of the dice and press it down. The top layer is just epoxy and carbon fiber chips, so the excess carbon and epoxy came out of the gaps. It seems to be working well. But maybe it would work better if I made some holes for the epoxy to come out. I think it was done well. However, the corners are not chamfered. It doesn't look good. I want to make a cool dice, so I'm going to start the chamfering process. For the most part, it went well, but there are a few areas that need to be fixed. Also, I think it would be cool if I could make the corners into a carbon chip pattern, so I will try to repair them. I will now file this down with a diamond file. Hopefully, the overfiled areas will be repaired and the corners should have a nice carbon chip pattern. I ended up with a lot of excess carbon fiber. I will do better next time. Repairs went well. However, I tried to get a nice pattern of carbon chips, but that did not work. In the end, I ended up filing most of it down. I think this test was very beneficial. I believe I have eliminated most of the problems I have had with the making of machine frames from epoxy granite, which I have been dissatisfied with. What I learned from this test. 1. The use of carbon fiber plates reinforces tensile strength and maintains a beautiful appearance without blowholes. 2. Carbon chips can be used to reinforce the joints of the carbon fiber plate to maintain high strength. 3. Carbon material is relatively easy to process with diamond tools. 4. Once the carbon fiber plate has been shaped and all the joints have been filled with carbon chips, it can be used as a formwork for pouring epoxy granite. 5. Since there is no need for metal reinforcement inside, large gravel can be used for the epoxy granite material. As a result, the ratio of epoxy to granite is reduced, resulting in a higher quality epoxy granite. 6. The surface can be easily repaired with carbon fiber chips. With all of these advantages and the fact that it is not that difficult to do, I am convinced that the frame can be successfully built with carbon fiber epoxy granite. I recommend anyone interested in this project to subscribe to the channel, so they don't miss the next video. If you empathize with my project, why don't you become a member and support this channel? There are few benefits, but as long as you are a member, your name will appear at the end of the videos as a patron. In other words, you can be a part of this project. So, please look forward to the next video.